Horror is a genre that's very malleable. Different things scare different people. However, the slasher has always been kind of one note. A big hulking man trying to kill a bunch of promiscuous teenagers in some remote area or suburb, and the man is basically invulnerable. That's pretty much the basis of every slasher film from the late 70s all the way to the mid-90s. Films like A Nightmare on Elm Street changed the game with how the slasher is presented by adding a supernatural element to it. A killer killing people in their dreams. And soon after, the massive horror franchises started following suit. Jason Voorhees became a tank that could never die, Chucky from the Child's Play series was a serial killer trapped in the body of a doll, and Michael Myers became the physical embodiment of evil that was also unkillable. Adding the supernatural element took the horror out of the slasher, which is why most of them turned into self-aware horror comedies. It made the slasher more campy, and while some of the campiness was a welcome change for the franchises like Child's Play and Friday the 13th, others really suffered like A Nightmare on Elm Street. However, in the mid-70s, one film created the crux of what a fantastic slasher should be, and that film was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The reason that this film is so scary and so amazing is because it doesn't rely on supernatural elements. The film is grounded in reality. There's no evil work at force here. It's a story of being in the wrong place at the right time and having the shittiest luck on the planet. When you look at the film objectively, everything you see in this film can actually happen. Which brings me to my first point about why this movie is incredible. They marketed this film as a true story, which just added to the horror and public interest. Imagine being alive in 1974 and you saw an advertisement for this and it said based on a true story. And then you went to the theater to see it, and you get that haunting opening narration by John Larroquette. You'd be shitting your pants before you even saw Leatherface. Speaking of Leatherface, remember in my last video when I bashed slasher films for not allowing the audience to sympathize or empathize with the killer? This movie perfects that. Leatherface is mentally handicapped. He doesn't know what he's doing throughout this film. He kills because it makes his family happy, which in turn makes him happy. He has the mind of like a 7-year-old. We feel sorry for Leatherface because he's basically a kid wanting to make his family happy. But the only way he knows how to is to kill people, trespassing on their property. If that doesn't cause you to have a shred of sympathy for Leatherface, then you're about as soulless as the killers in all the other films I talked about in my previous videos. Leatherface I wouldn't say is as iconic as Freddy or Jason, but he's still widely known by the public for the unique ways that he creates his masks. Another thing that I love is Tobe Hooper's magical direction in this film. If you want to direct anything in your life that even has a shred of suspense, then dude, watch the last chase sequence at the end of this movie. Holy shit. One of the most nail-biting and thrilling conclusions to a film that I've ever seen. Even in the earlier sequences in the movie, like the opening scene where the camera is taking pictures of the dead body, or when the hitchhiker slices his hand in the middle of a van, every scene is dripping with dread. What I also love about this movie is that it isn't even that gory. Hooper relies more on the performances and the implications rather than blood and gore itself. Sure, there are scenes with blood, but the film is truly terrifying when we're with the family and they're trying to break Sally. It's soul-crushing. The entire last 20 minutes of the movie is a masterclass in directorial prowess. The cinematography is on point too. Hooper captures the rustic backwaters of Texas so well, and the movie is beautiful to look at. Near the end, when we finally meet the family, everything is so dingy and gross, and it's close-ups galore. The torture sequence is brutal, and it's not even that gory. When they cut Sally's finger and put it in Grandpa's mouth is absolutely disgusting, and there's barely any blood. Every shot is tight and focused and claustrophobic, mirroring Sally's situation. I especially love the shots of her eyes in the dining room sequence. Like, good God, man. And the one long take of Grandpa trying to hit her with the hammer is bone-chilling. Another thing I have to give monumental praise to is the performances. Notably, Gunnar Hansen as Leatherface, Marilyn Burns as Sally, and Edwin Neal as the hitchhiker. During the last 20 minutes of this movie, all of them shine. Marilyn Burns is electric in this movie. She truly looks like she's getting tortured and mentally broken. Her last laugh at the end of this movie really sells that she's both relieved and broken. She's an absolute powerhouse in this movie. Edwin Neal as the hitchhiker is sadistic and brutal. The way he toys with Sally and wounds her and eventually breaks her is fucking chilling, man. He's creepy in the beginning of this movie and terrifying at the end. And of course, there's Gunnar Hansen as Leatherface. What's there to say about this iconic performance? Leatherface is screwed up, man, and Hansen portrays that perfectly. Hansen has stated that he studied kids with mental disabilities to get into the role, and boy did it pay off. Leatherface is such a tragic character. The production design of the Sawyer house is phenomenal as well. All the little skeletons and body parts hanging around, mixed with its dirty and dingy feel, make the house feel like it's been a killing field for years. I also love when Sally wakes up after being tortured and she's tied to a chair that has severed arms glued to it. It's just a nice little brutal and disgusting detail. Overall, I don't think I need to say that this is one of the best horror movies ever made. but I'm gonna say it anyway. This is one of the best horror movies ever made. Everything about this movie feels like a labor of love. All the elements coming together, like the performances, sound design, directing, cinematography, and editing, come together to form a classic American slasher film. This is a timeless classic. It's one of the first slashers ever, and damn, if one of the first slashers can be this good upon release, then there had to be some hope for the genre. Right? Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm DeGe. And baby, you already know what channel it is.